Good morning, everybody. Today is the 18th day in the month of May 2022. My name is Heritage Adisa, market analyst at HFM Nigeria. Quickly, as usual, we'll check through the markets. I'll find out what the overall sentiment is, find out if the opportunities, and then how we can take advantage of it. But please remember that this is just a communication material. Nothing in this communication should be considered as investment advice or investment recommendation. Users acknowledge that investment in FX and CFD products is characterized by a certain degree of uncertainty, and that any investment of this nature involves a high level of risk for which users are solely responsible and liable. What we have this morning in terms of the overall market environment is a more mixed start to the day. Yesterday, we had very strong bullish run, strong positive gains, strong positive environment on the back of COVID cases, COVID situation in China, Shanghai particularly, right? And that we had equities jump up, we had hypercurrencies move up most of the day. Now, today we've had most of those gains cap. As a matter of fact, markets are trading more tentative so far today. Moves are still marginal, equities are mixed, commodities are lower, oil prices are mostly flat, and an FX trade mixed as well. Now, the COVID situation in China has some, mixed updates today. Yes, Shanghai still keeps that positive record right now. Today is the fourth consecutive day of no new COVID cases outside of the quarantine zones, which is good. But in Beijing, right, they've now put some other areas in Beijing in lockdowns for 7 days. So clearly another negative there. So we have that mixed balance in terms of the COVID situation out of China. Earlier as well, we had, as late yesterday, we had comments from Fed members, as Chapo as well as even Evans, where basically they kept on stressing that inflation is still a very major worry and they'll keep hiking till they get to the neutral rates. Now, clearly that's not a good thing for equities and a good input for equities. It's a good thing for the dollar as well. But in terms of the flows, that's the information flow that we had. We also had inflation numbers, wage index, particularly for Australia, come out earlier. Remember that the RBA have also hiked. They hiked in their last meeting, and then there's talk that they could even hike even further by up to 40 basis points if they can get, wage data, the employment data to solid levels. ANZ had already said that if the wage index get up to 1%, that could be a threshold for the RBA to hike by 40 basis points. Now, the wage index came out, it wasn't up to expect, it was less than expected. And clearly we had the Australian dollar initially fall on the back of that. But even since then, we've had it pay some of those losses and now trading flat mostly against currency like the dollar, right? On the equity space, the Asian equities trade mostly mixed. The ones on the Chinese side down, some other ones up as well. European equities, yes, are higher, but then you look at US futures, they are down. That clearly gives us, a big picture of what the mixed environment is saying. Bond yields also trade mixed so far today. In currency space, yes, it's tilting towards a more negative, side because JPY and USD lead the majors. But although the moves are marginal, and then we have pound on the weaker side, we had inflation numbers for the UK, earlier today as well. Yes, it was hot, not as much as expected, but it was still hot, but it wasn't even enough to even help the pound up as well. There's been a lot of worries about UK economy in recent times, so there's that to pay attention to. The euro also lags as well along with the pound. While you look at commodity currencies, mostly in the middle of the pack, you have AUD, CAD particularly trading in the middle. NZD has picked up a bit, but mostly still back and forth playing through the market. Now, I had issues. I said, despite the overall mixed flow, right, clearly calling for patience, which means that you should be more, patient. Don't look to jump into market moves without having anything concrete to play with. But despite that, sentiment tilts towards the negative side. Look at equities being down mostly. You look at hybrid currencies, down as well. Clearly, that's something to pay attention to. And then you notice that the overall underlying issues like, expectations for global growth, slowdown, expectations for faster and tighter, central bank policy. Clearly, all of them are looking to tighten, right? Except barring, Bank of Japan and the Swiss National Bank. Even the European Central Bank are talking about the hikes as well. Some calling for June, July hikes as well. All of that still remain, a weighing factor for equities. Good for the dollar. So at least keep that at the back of your mind. But in terms of looking to peer strength versus weakness in today's session, yes, we could talk about strength for JPY, for USD, weakness for Euro pound. But in terms of convictions, though, it's a little bit tricky. I could look at pounds, USD, on the balance. We could look at that, and then we could look at maybe pounds against JPY, even though I'm not really feeling the confidence level when it comes to the trades like today. Mostly you want to stay out, but we'll look at that now on the chart. On the calendar, it's really a light one. Apart from inflation number for Canada, we had one for the UK earlier, and now we're having one for, Canada later today. That would be a key tier one data expected. But apart from that, there's not much on the calendar Markets are going to be driven by sentiment, currently mixed. We could pay attention, in terms of, we should pay attention to the sentiment. Starting mixed doesn't mean we would end mixed. We could have a tilt, have a shift in sentiment as the day progresses on the back of new information flow. So we should pay attention to that. Now, on the looking at the Europe US equity, like I said, we've seen that pullback downside in the US future side. Like I said, European equities are a little bit up in today's session, right? But you look at this on the balance of the kind of moves that we had yesterday. Nothing says this cannot be a pullback, right? So there's also that to pay attention to. And I think we should be more, cautious about, the moves that we're seeing so far in, the market so far. Now, we could look at something like this Australian dollar versus the US, like I talked about, right? Dropped on the back of the weaker wage, price index, but since paid some of those losses, pulled back. You see more of that chopping moves and well within yesterday's American and most of the European session range. So clearly, not much going on there. Now, I could look at pounds USD. Being weak in today's session, yes, we could talk about the weakness, solid there, strength and weakness, but you can look at where we're trading right now. Key support level around 1.24, right? And that was also a very interesting one going back to the highs of 9th of May as well as the 11th of May, very close to also American highs going back to the 5th of May. So clearly, this is a key previous level of resistance and now tested at support. Now, you could talk about pounds being weak in today's session, dollar being strong, but I mean, this could also be a support level and we could see it bounce off from here. So generally, the moves are still very, very much fragile. And I think, yes, we could look to force something out, but when it comes to trading, it's not just about taking a trade. It's more about waiting for a high quality, high probability, best trading opportunity, before looking to get into the market. And so far for now, it's a lot tricky and I'm not looking to jump into, what we're seeing right now. On the balance, long-term, bigger term view, and there's some currencies that we can still pay attention to, with the RBS looking to hike. That's still a positive overall for the Australian dollar, even though we have some negatives in terms of China, in terms of commodity prices, as well as even general risk of sentiment, general global slowdown that we're expecting. So that's also a negative for the AUD. But, I want to just take it a day at a time. At this point, I think paying attention to sentiment flow will be a very good way to go. And being patient, waiting for something more concrete to work with would be a very good way to go. Now, we could pay attention to the sentiment by looking at websites like Financial Juice, for example. This would help us in terms of paying attention to what the current sentiment is or any new information flow. If there is any change, any big change, right, in terms of sentiment, in terms of news feed, you get it on the feed here, right? Just keep paying attention to this. This can help you. There's any information that can change sentiment, you get it here. And then we can always use this to figure or, go back into the market and see if you can do anything. But for now, I'm staying a lot patient, staying a lot, I'm waiting a lot, waiting to see if there are any other developments in the day that could help. If nothing changes, we could get continued push and pull for the most of the day. On the calendar, it's a light one, right? Yes, we had, like I said, we had inflation numbers for the UK. It was hot, way more than the previous print by about 2%, but not even up to what markets expected. It's still a hot data despite being red here, but even with that, it hasn't still helped the British pound. Later, we're expecting inflation numbers for Canada, right? Not as much expected in terms of the previous numbers, but clearly, and I don't think it should change, the Bank of Canada's, hiking outlook, even though markets have priced in so much more than they have done, but it really shouldn't change so much, except if the variance is really, really large. Apart from that, there is really no more tier one data, expected on the wire. So we're going to leave it at that. It's a mixed environment. Yes, USD JPY is strong, not by the largest of margins. And then we have Euro and pounds mostly weak, not by the largest of margins. And then we have AUD NZD card mostly in the middle of the pack. Thank you very much. Do enjoy the rest of the trading session. Bye for now.